Hey everyone, thank you so much for stopping back by the channel. So we are on part 6 of the series, Are We Born Sinners? If you have not yet seen parts 1 through 5, I'm going to go ahead and put a suggestion to part 1 right here so that you could watch those and get up to speed with what we've been talking about. Okay? So at the end of part 5, I left you with a question, which was, is there any justification for Jehovah killing babies in the Old Testament? Now, of course, personally, I don't think there is any justification, regardless of if we are sinners, okay? But what I was saying in the end of that video is that the only way this seems to be justified by people when this is brought up to them and they're questioned about this is because they believe that we are sinners or born sinners, and that this would have been something where Jehovah was just making this decision to do this, and he was in his right to do this because sin deserves death, okay? But let's just talk a little bit about this situation that happened with the Amalekites. I know you guys all know about this story. Any of you who, are curious about these type of things, you know about this. What happened, okay? So obviously that's in 1 Samuel 15 verse 3. I'm gonna go ahead and read it, and then I'm gonna go back to the scripture that is leading up to this, okay? So I'm in the New International Version, and here's what it says. Now go, attack the Amalekites and totally destroy everything that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put to death men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys. Okay, so what do the animals have to do with anything either, right? But we're focusing on the children and infants. Some Bibles say suckling or nursing babies. So this is very, very young babies that are still nursing, that haven't even been weaned yet, okay? They needed to be killed also. But let's go back to Exodus, where the reason for why they are even attacking them right here in 1 Samuel is talked about. So this is Exodus 17, and I'm not going to read these verses, but basically you see that the Amalekites in verse 8, they came and attacked the Israelites. So some Bibles refer to it as waylaying them or ambushing them or something to that effect. So basically this was like a surprise attack when they were on their exodus out of Egypt. But notice what happens. After they attack them, the Israelites, through Joshua, went back and attacked them and actually defeated them, okay? So, they attacked them first, and so the Israelites responded. So you would think that should be the end of it. Well, obviously, it wasn't the end of it, because let's notice in verse 14 and 15 what Jehovah is saying to Moses. Then Jehovah said to Moses, write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the memory of Amalek under heaven. Moses built an altar and called it Jehovah is my banner. What the? And this is verse 16. He said, for hands were lifted up to the throne of Jehovah. Jehovah will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. This sounds like some man-made stuff, don't it? Like you're really that upset. Like you already beat them, and now you're just so upset that they came and attacked you guys when you weren't expecting it. And so now you're like, I'm going to be at war with them from generation to generation, and I'm going to completely destroy them, the memory of them from the face of the earth. You cannot tell me that this doesn't sound like a man who's a little bit butthurt. Okay? This is the Almighty? Really? That's what y'all believe? Those of you who believe this? And so again, this is what takes us to 1 Samuel. He said he was going to, never forget this. Write it down so that they would never forget it. And then you get to 1 Samuel, and now what you had was Samuel telling Saul, who was king at that time, what Jehovah had said, which was go and attack the Amalekites and completely destroy them, to the point where you kill all the babies and even the animals. Okay. So this kind of reminds me of the video that I did about Pharaoh. Remember that video? If you haven't seen it, I'll put a suggestion to it right here. But in that video, I was talking about how Jehovah apparently, before he even did the 10 plagues, obviously knew what he was going to do as far as hardening Pharaoh's heart and everything, because before the first plague even hit, he already was saying that he was going to kill Pharaoh's firstborn son. Okay, so that's letting you know the ultimate desire is for me to kill the firstborn son. Okay, so now when I look at this and he's saying, I'm going to completely, utterly destroy them. This is letting me know that at that point, he had already determined to kill their children and everything, okay, at some point in the future. Okay, so most people believe, according to the New Testament in Romans, that the wages sin pays is death, okay? So we deserve death because of our sin, because we are sinners. But what sins did these young babies commit? Obviously, this was not why Jehovah was killing them. He was killing them because of this whole ambush or surprise attack on the Israelites. It didn't have anything to do with their sin, unless you're considering that a sin, but that's not what people think when it comes to the babies, because the babies were not even a part of that, okay? It's just talking about this innate sin that's supposed to be in everybody's DNA that would make it justifiable for God to do this. But now this is the thing I want to think about with this, you guys. This is supposed to be the Almighty, right? He's supposed to be omniscient, meaning that he knows everything, okay? So that means he would have knew about this attack before it even happened, okay? He would have known that the Amalekites was going to do this. So did he allow them to do it then? I mean, because if you say that he didn't know, then that means that he's not omniscient, which is what most people think. And this would justify all of the way that everything is unfolding in humanity and why he's allowing things to happen, because he knows ultimately what's going to happen and he has this grand plan, right? But if he doesn't know stuff before it happens, which it does seem like that a lot of times in the Old Testament, then what are we saying? Who are we worshiping? Like, what are you guys, why are we so impressed with this? Okay. But so let's just assume, like most people do, that he does know. So if he did know that they were going to do this and he chose not to stop them, then that means he allowed them to do it, right? And if he allowed them to do it and ultimately he killed their children for doing it, then what does this ultimately mean? That he was, okay with killing their children. Like, he could have stopped them if he really wanted to. You can't tell me that he just sent all these 10 plagues to the Egyptians, had this cloud, this pillar, this cloud leading the Israelites out of on their exodus. He used the same cloud to keep the, Pharaoh's armies from catching up to them. And then he put the Red Sea back over them and killing all of Pharaoh's army, according to this scripture. Okay. But yet, after being that powerful and doing all of that, he couldn't stop the Amalekites. The Amalekites weren't even a world power compared to Egypt, of course. So you mean he couldn't stop them? Come on now. That's what I'm saying. This is just a story, you guys. This is just a story about man and their conquest. Just because they were saying that the Almighty was on their side doesn't mean that it was true. Because why would Jehovah do such a thing? Why? If he doesn't desire any to be destroyed, why is he killing babies? Okay, so now let's get to the point. How are we deserving of sin or deserving of death as a baby who has not yet done anything yet? They haven't done anything. And some people will say, well, it doesn't matter because it's still sin and it deserves death. Okay, but let's look at this. Remember the video that I did about why did Jehovah keep the virgins alive in the Old Testament? And if you haven't seen that, I'll put a link to that right here. So there was a time when they attacked certain people that he allowed Moses to keep the virgins alive, the young girls, okay? But he killed everybody else. And some people in the comments when I did that video was saying, well, you don't understand the culture back then and the way they would have looked at things. It would have been easier for these young virgins to assimilate into the culture and for them to teach them their ways and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you mean to tell me they could do this with the virgins, right? But they couldn't do that with the babies. If it was really about there being just these innocent, children that they could easily assimilate into their culture to have them serve Jehovah with them or whatever, they could have did that with the babies. The babies were the ones that actually were really a clean slate. Okay. So no, I don't buy that. And if any of you who continue to buy that, I mean, I don't know what to say. That's just crazy that people can justify killing babies in any situation. Why is it that Jesus in the New Testament says that we need to be more like children? That in order to enter into the kingdom of heaven, people need to turn around and become like children, as if something is somehow better. Children are a little bit more humble. There's a lot of different qualities and innocence about children. But yet, in this case, Jehovah felt they were just as deserving of death. That's what this would be saying. Because it didn't matter if they had done anything. It didn't matter. So no wonder we go through life feeling so down on ourselves about this sin that's just right there lurking under the surface that we were born with, and we are just doomed, being consumed by this. It's running through our veins. We think we are so horrible and deserving of death, which is why people allow these religions to do what they do. Because people are so afraid and feel so bad about themselves as a result of believing that we've been sinners from birth. Okay? It's just really, really sad, and it's time that we change this mentality. Okay? But again, as I keep stating, Genesis is the foundation of everything. Yes, there's other scriptures throughout the rest of the Bible that talks about man's sin. Okay, but what in Genesis actually gives people this idea that we are sinners? What is it? What are the things that we can point to that makes people really so confident that this thing that Adam and Eve did actually carried on to their offspring? Okay, that's what we are going to be discussing in part 7. So